Let's try this now. He's still there. He's hanging in. Oh, we're seeing a light. Thank God. Okay, here we go. Jeez, I feel like a freaking moron. I'm just checking my feed. I apologize here. We're going to get started here in just a second. There we go. I can actually hear clicking through. All right, cool. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, how's it going today? I am the Digital Ham. I do apologize. I posted a video. I don't know why, but all of my settings were set up that I didn't have any audio. So I went back and watched my video, and sure as crap, it shut off for some stupid reason. So anyways, let's go ahead and get started. This is going to suck because I'm going to have to do all of this over again, and I'm not too excited about that, but that's all right. Oh, shiza. Wow, that was interesting. I apologize about all the sound. I'm just trying to get this thing set up because I don't want it blocking my view. So anyways, guys, I wanted to start this off in a little bizarre way. The reason I'm making this video tonight is basically all of the stuff that has been happening in the media recently is just really, really sad. And first want to go ahead and start this thing off by saying I'm really sorry about the situation that happened and the attack in France. And my thoughts and prayers go out to those that are affected by this, and also to the French nation and all the people of France. I really do feel horrible about what happened. And so what I wanted to talk about was just a compilation of just a lot of different things. And I'm going to try to shorten it up this time because that last one was 46 minutes and I don't have the heart in it anymore. I don't have the ability to do it for that long. There's been a lot of things that have happened between the San Bernardino shootings, the French shootings that happened earlier, late last year, Orlando, now this atrocity, and the list just seems to just keep on going without any kind of idea that it's ever going to stop. No signs that it's going to stop. And so I just wanted to talk about some of the issues that are really plaguing me and are making me very upset. And one of those main reasons is because of the stupid media and this political jargon that we have going on right now that is pretty much Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton putting their 2 cents in on the situation that happened in Orlando and also in France. This is very disheartening because I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to say who I'm voting for, but you're going to probably figure it out very shortly that there's pretty much only one person left. And I'm not happy with either one of them, to be honest with you. Even if I wasn't going to vote, I'm just not happy with their situation and the way that they've been handling it. And one of the things I want to focus in on is what Hillary Clinton said. And Hillary Clinton had made a statement earlier this afternoon. In fact, or I believe it was last night, she called in on a talk show and made a statement that pretty much if she became president, she would do a resurgence of intelligence. And I find that to be one of the most stupid, retarded, ignoramus statements ever. I'm going to back that up by proving this point with you guys. The point that makes it so stupid and why it's such a stupid statement is because except for this one incident, this isolated incident, which is the France Nice attack, every single one of these freaking attacks they've had intelligence on. 9/11. They had intelligence on the San Bernardino case. Orlando shooting, big time. All of them have had, even the France attack, the first France attack that we found out, which is not the first France attack of terrorism. There's been a bazillion, and probably about 5 that have involved a vehicle. So to say that a vehicle, this is the first time it's happened, is actually inaccurate completely. And that was just in France alone. And so you have all these situations where they had knowledge and yet they did nothing. I remember watching the day after the first attack that we found out about I believe it was November or December of last year, where they went into the concert hall and shot up. Dozens of people had bomb vests and everything like that, and then hit a coffee shop and a couple other places. The government had came out, the French government had came out and said, yeah, we had tips that this was going to happen. But we didn't know what to do. So, we didn't know exactly where it was going to happen. Well, what the fuck is the sense of having intelligence if it's not intelligent? If you're not intelligent enough to figure out, okay, well, we got to do something, or we got to be proactive here instead of being reactive, what's the sense of even getting the intel in the first place? So to say that we need more information, well, of course, more information is fantastic, but how are you going to obtain that information? For one, are you going to get it from interrogating captives? Are you going to get it from the internet, from trying to intercept their talks between? Are you going to try to do it this way? Are you going to try to do that way? It doesn't matter how you do it. They're not going to come out and be blatantly like, yes, on the February the 31st, this will happen at this place at this time, and make sure you bring lunch. They don't say that stuff. Okay. So they work in my opinion, and all of the research that I can do, they work very compartmentalized, saying, I know this much and Bill knows this much, but without Bill and Bob mixing together, there is no full and intimate plan. It's because they keep that information separate from each other. It's just like when we built the atom bomb. The atom bomb was one of the most closely guarded secrets ever in U.S. history. And so what they did was they said, well, you need to know this. You don't need to know that. You need to know this. You don't need to know that. And by keeping the layers of that secrecy there, it made it extremely hard for anybody to gain the upper hand and know exactly what was going on altogether. And so the intelligence is going to help, but it's not going to help if we're not going to be using the intelligence intelligently to formulate a plan. And by the time you get the intelligence, half the time it's already a plan that's probably already going to happen. So you're either going to intercept that plan and shut it down, or you're going to play the guessing game to try to catch up. But intelligence, I believe that's a stupid statement, because we've had knowledge. Simple as that. We've had the knowledge. We know what is happening, what is not happening. We know why individuals are doing what they're doing. We know that because they're radicalizing. We know that they're doing a lot of stuff over the internet where they're formulating plans they're sending out. And the other thing too is to say that this is a ring, or that these are splinter cells in a way. It makes a lot of sense, but at the same time, it does not. If they're a splinter cell, then that means that they would have to have direct contact between them and their ringleader, the ISIS itself. And doing that in the United States with the amount of capture of information that we have, I would find that extremely hard to do. So what I would say is they're not really splinter cells. They're radicalized. They're formulating their own plans. And then once they finish out their plan, then ISIS comes in and says, yep, they're one of us, which in essence they are. Why is it also that they're all pledging their allegiance to ISIS? It's saying Allah Akbar. Well, because ISIS is like, well, we don't claim him. Oh, but he yelled out, I pledge my allegiance to ISIS. Oh, well then they are ours. I don't really per se think that it's an actual organization that's formulating and working inside the U.S. I just believe that it's making it even harder for us to find them because of the fact that they are working independently of anything, any ties. They're just kind of doing it on their own. But that doesn't change the fact that every single one of them had intelligence on them. And when I say intelligence, I mean you had the individual who did who had done the shooting in Orlando. That individual had been flagged 3 fucking times. 3 fucking times he was investigated by the FBI and was released. Now, if I even remotely got investigated by the FBI, do you think that I should be able to buy a firearm? Even if there was like, well, we got faulty information or whatever. That, in my opinion, if you are even 1/10 look like you're radicalized or you're some whack job, no, bitch, you don't get a gun, you don't get to fly, you don't get to do shit. You're lucky you have a driver's license. That's just my opinion, and I think that would be a proactive way of doing it. But here's the thing, though, and I think this is why it's happening. You realize that these terrorists actually have more rights than us individuals. And that goes for France, that goes for here in the US, that goes for practically every country, because it's almost considered discrimination. Well, we don't want to discriminate against them. Well, they're fucking terrorists, or they're going to become terrorists. Why can't we discriminate against them? Why cannot we remove their rights? They are not rights. They don't want to be part of this country. They want to destroy this country. So why should we give them rights? And so what's happening is they're ciphering and gathering all this information from innocent U.S. American citizens. Then they're gathering the intelligence, and then they sit on the intelligence of all these individuals that are radicalized and that are possibly going to carry out some kind of ISIS-inspired plot. And they're doing shit about it, but yet we're losing our rights as individuals by having them, recording our phone conversations, gathering mass data databases on every single body and what you're doing, what time you take a shit, and all this stuff. And believe me, if you don't believe that that's what they're doing and that's the extent of what they know, God, I have pity for your soul. I received a few days ago a new debit card in the mail. And this has one of those new CFD chips or CID chips. I can't remember how you pronounce them or what they're called exactly. But this is pretty much the new thing. It's supposed to keep you safe. No, the fuck it isn't. And I'm going to explain to you why. I did work, and I'm going to keep this as vague as possible, but I did work in asset protection for a certain company, and I don't want to give too much away, but I did asset protection for this company, and I was having a conversation with a detective from local law enforcement, in my area, and we were just chit chatting. And we were investigating a stolen identity where an individual had gathered information. Well, he'd actually skimmed the information off of a card and took that card and pretty much put it on a new prepaid debit card and was using it inside this place of business where I worked. And so we went in and we did the investigation. I was helping with the process, giving him all the information that I had. And we were kind of getting on that meeting ground. And he said, yeah, he's like, was it a CID chip? And I was like, no, I don't think it was. And I had to go back into my information to find out if it was or not. And he's like, I'm not happy about that. And I said, what do you mean? Like, why are you freaking out about a stupid debit card? It's a debit card. If they're going to skim it, they're going to skim it. He's like, well, it's not even that anymore. He's like, these new RFD chips. That's what they are. RFD chips. The RFD chip, it's so easy to gather your information, and everybody's like, oh, it's so much safer. And that's what the bank is telling you. But that's not the case. You can walk past somebody now with an RFD scanner, and you can literally skim it 20 feet away from them and gather all their information that fast. And this debit card does not just hold your debit card information for your banking. It also has your name, all that stuff, everything that it needs. And so what I find it to be a problem with this is it's taking all your information and putting it out, literally walking around like a Wi-Fi fucking signal in your fucking pocket. And now we're starting to sell and see all over the news that they have these, little wallets that are actually they're lined, and they're made out of metal to repel that signal so they can't make contact with your card. Okay, that's fucking scary. Okay, that you could be walking through the grocery store and somebody could skim your information off in 10 minutes and be out the door and you never saw them. Now, imagine this. Okay, imagine this from a law enforcement or somebody working in the store who's doing asset protection, who's trying to help you in this process of your identification has been stolen. You got 17 people walking this way and one person walking this way. That RFD chip is ripped off. All the information is skimmed or scanned, right? How do you know who did it? You got 17 people there in one passing. How do you know? How do you even know that happened? How do you know? How do you limit it down to one person? It's impossible. It's impossible. So it's making it even harder. And I'm going way off the rabbit trail on this stupid thing, but this is just what I'm talking about, where it's becoming stupid. The rights and the ability, your privacy is becoming more open, and yet you're not getting any more security. They're saying, oh, well, this is more secure, but it's really not. It's putting your information out further out towards the edge of the water where anybody can get it, but it's not bringing you any closer to feeling secure. So now, me living in Central Florida, I'm literally 45 minutes to an hour away from Orlando. And so I know for some people that have not seen these things and have dealt with it in their communities, that, it's really heartbreaking when you turn on the news. And I fall into this category also. I turn on the news, I hear about these massive shootings and all these different things that are happening, these terrorist attacks. And I get really sad, and I'm like, God, that's so sad. Well, I better shut off the TV and go to work. And then 20 minutes later, I'm not even thinking about it. When it happens in your backyard or your front step, it's a different story. It really makes you think a lot. And I want to reaffirm this statement. Your government will not save you. Your government will not save you. If you are one of these individuals that is so brainwashed by the system that you think that the government is going to save you, if you think that the government was ever intent on saving any of these individuals that died in any of these attacks, whether it be 9/11, whether it be any of these other ones, you're a fucking idiot. I love you, but you're in denial. This is the real world. They don't give a shit. Now, if this was a terrorist attack, if terrorist attacks weren't about attacking individuals and attacking and trying to hurt and maim and dismember and kill, and it was about money, do you think that this would be a big issue? Do you think that the government would be sitting on its fucking hands with its thumb up its ass? No. Let me bring up this this is just, I'm giving you guys little freaking nuggets that are kind of just like cha-ching. Okay, that makes sense. And that actually makes even more sense now. Okay, I get it. And I'm not trying to make it fun of anybody or call anybody stupid. I'm just saying a lot of this stuff people don't think about. And I'm one of these weird ass people that thinks about this stuff. I don't know why, but I am. It's just the way that my mind works. But this one, I have to give props to one of my favorite people, and he is so controversial. I know a lot of people freaking hate his guts, but I'm going to say his name anyways. Jesse Ventura. Actually, after the statement, you'll probably have a little bit more respect for him. So Jesse Ventura, his background being military, being, you know, a governor and all this stuff, and being very, he was an independent, but he was very conservative with his beliefs. But by the same token, he was kind of a little bit of a mix of both liberal plus a little bit conservative, but kind of on his own path, independent. He's very pro-gun, and he loves guns, and he made a living using firearms, and that's understandable and good for him. And, you know, thank you for his service for being a SEAL. But one of the things that he stated was, you know, you can tell how your government really loves you and how guns are so bad. How guns are so bad. How bad are guns? So let's look at this little instance that he gave. He gave the instance of this, okay? So you have a school, okay? What do schools have to protect the innocent little children or high schoolers, whatever it may be, young individuals, from some kind of attack or a armed gunman or whatever it may be, any kind of harm coming towards them? Well, they have fences, because fucking fences work fantastic. You know, it's keeping our borders safe and keeping people from jumping in all the time. Fences are great. You know, you can look down in Texas and see how that's going. So, yeah, I'm not going to call fence very safe. I mean, a fence, if it needs to be scaled or ran over, it's going to be scaled and ran over. It doesn't matter. Then they have locks on the doors, and you have to like push a button to get in. Like my daughter's school, you have to push the button, and they ask you who you are and who to see there. And this is after, you know, once the school's actually in all the classes are in session, they, you know, lock the door and everything. That ain't going to stop somebody if they want to cause some kind of chaos. It ain't going to stop nobody. So they have a lock on their door. And then they might have some kind of member of staff that patrols and walks and makes sure that there isn't any kind of suspicious activity. And maybe there's even one law enforcement officer there. I know at my daughter's school, there's sometimes an officer there. I don't even know. I've seen him maybe one time. But an entire school of, you know, say 200, 300 students, and you have one law enforcement officer, pretty shitty. I mean, in my opinion, I think that that's not a good standard. We should have more than that. We should have more law enforcement anyways, just because there's not enough of them. But that's another topic for another time. So he said, you know, that's one part of the point. The second part of the point is he said, well, let's compare here now. How bad are guns? Well, let's look at a bank. What do they have at banks? They have vaults. They have plated glass. They have bullet-resistant glass. They have armed guards with firearms. Why? Because there's fucking money there. And so what I see and what that statement made to me, this is just me personally, is we give a real big shit about our money. But when it comes to human life, it's obviously not that big of a deal. That's what I see. And as some people are, oh God, you're being really over dramatic. No, I'm not really. Think about it. Think about the fact that I can go into a bar anywhere in the state of Florida, and if I have a CWP, a concealed weapons permit for the state of Florida, which is, I think, active. I think it's good to use in other 27 states, I believe. There's only a couple that you can't use the Florida license in if I'm traveling or whatever. I go into a bar, I'm not allowed to have that weapon. That is a de-armed zone. I am not allowed to have a weapon inside that bar. Now, do I think that's a stupid idea? No, because I don't think guns and drunk people make a good mix. But do I think that law enforcement officers should be present, whether they're paid by the bar or they're paid by the individual department? Yes, I think that's a great idea. I think you'd see the crime rate in bars go down, and I think that it would be a safer environment knowing that you have a law enforcement officer there. Now, there's going to be people that are going to counteract this theory, and they're going to say, well, they had a cop there at Pulse in Orlando where the shooting happened. And for that, I can say you're right. But I'm telling you right now, if that cop wouldn't have been there, you would have had a lot more casualties. I can guarantee you that cop did everything in his power to keep that guy from going inside. And when the confrontation started, that man made it into that building, and the cop was, for some people that don't know, and for those that do, they're going to understand this. But if you're inside of a building and I'm on the outside of the building and I have a firearm and you have a firearm, going through a doorway without any kind of backup or anybody behind you or stacked up behind you or anything like that, or in tactical gear or whatever it may be, that is what they call a fatal funnel, meaning you have this passageway. You can't go left. You can't go right. You have to go through that doorway, which means it's a straight vantage point for that person to take you out. So that officer was trying to be very smart and try to keep that guy from going into the building. It didn't work, but it still saved more people than if he would have just gone in there, waltzed in, did nothing but just shoot everybody up. So, props to him for doing his very, very best. And I know that that's got to weigh a lot on that man's shoulders. But weapons and cops in bars, cops patrolling the streets, that's going to change a lot of the incentive for these guys to do what they're doing. And I don't think that taking weapons away from individuals is going to solve anything. And I further believe that people should educate themselves on firearm safety and firearm use. I'm not saying you have to be a tactical guru, but I am stating that which I did sell firearms for a while. I enjoyed educating individuals on firearm safety and firearm use and how to properly assemble, disassemble, use, maintain the firearm, and the rules and regulations in which to keep yourself safe in. And that is something that I feel like I'm empowering that individual. And a lot of these people came to me and they were scared and they were like, I don't like guns, they make me nervous. And I'm like, well, the one analogy that I always used was, I said, well, are you scared when you get in your car? Are you scared of yourself are you scared of your car? Let's put it that way. And people would be like, no, why? And I'm like, okay, well, are you scared when you put that key in, you put it into drive and you take off and you're driving down the road, you constantly just sit there and your hands sweat and you're scared and you're like, oh my God. And they're like, no, I'm not scared. I'm not scared of my car, but I am scared about the other individuals and their cars. Okay. Well, if you don't have a fear of your vehicle, which is no pun intended, which obviously you can tell that this is a weapon. It can be used as a weapon. It's not a weapon. It's just a tool, but it can be used as a weapon. It's the same idea and purpose behind a firearm. A firearm in and of itself is not anything dangerous. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to fire off out of the middle of nowhere where you're in the middle of the night. It's not going to jump out of your safe and come over there and stand on top of your chest and then shoot you in the head. It's not going to do that. It has to be wielded by someone who either wants to do harm or wants to help. And so I would inform these individuals and I'd give them situations. And one of the situations that I always stated was, I said, well, let me ask you this. I said, you're asleep at night. You got your family in bed and everybody's sleeping and you hear a crash and a bang. Somebody's breaking in your window. And you go and grab your firearm, you grab your flashlight, and you come up and you draw down, and you see this guy breaking into your house. And I told him, what's your inclination? And 95% of the time you would have either be female or male. They would say, I'd shoot him. And I would state to them, I would say, that's a knee-jerk reaction. I said, but given the circumstances, 9 times out of 10, people are not going to want to pull the trigger. But should they and could they are two different things. And what I did was I would explain how I would assess the situation, but yet I have training. So I'm not saying that people should do this, but I would, for one, I don't want my family to go through hell. And shooting an individual and killing an individual is not something that I would ever want on my conscience. And of course, in protecting my family, if it was my last resort, of course, no doubt. And at that time, I will probably have a lot to deal with after the fact, but I will sit in put my head at rest at night, knowing that I did what I had to do because I had to do it, and that it was self protection. But um, just shooting somebody because they're breaking into my house, if they're not a viable threat to me, and I cannot, and if I have a flashlight, I can assess the situation. I can see this guy's trying to climb through a window, or he's breaking down my door. If he's standing in front of me and his hands are present and I can see them in a visible fashion, then I'm obviously not going to go ahead and just blow the guy away. I'm going to give verbal commands. I'm going to make sure that I can assess the situation, make sure that I can, assess the threat, make sure that I can identify to some degree what his intentions are. If he's just breaking into my house because he's a crackhead and he wants to sell some stuff, I don't want to kill somebody over that. I don't really want to kill anybody over anything, but that is where this mindset starts happening. And with all of this crap going on, I know I'm rabbit trailing like crazy, but I'm trying to bring everybody back to this realization that this stuff is happening, and it's happening in weird areas. I mean, San Bernardino is a big city, but it's not a Los Angeles. It's not a San Diego. It's not an LA. These are happening in smaller areas. These are happening. Orlando, obviously, it's a huge central region. It's a very highly populated metropolitan area, but not all this stuff is happening. Chattanooga, Tennessee. This stuff is moving slowly but surely towards more prominently smaller areas. And I start seeing that, and I think I'm going to start seeing it more. And the whole thing with Nice in France. Now, that could have been motivated just because there was going to be a higher population of people there. And I can understand that as a motive for them, or for him. But this stuff is hitting home, guys. And if you have a family, and everybody has somebody that they love, and you've really got to start assessing the threat level of what's going on in your area. If you're traveling, if you're doing any of this stuff, and you need to have what they call situational awareness, which means when you go into a situation, you want to process what is going on. And I'm not saying that you can't live your life and enjoy situations, but when I go to Disney, which I go all the time, one of the things I do is I kind of make an assessment of what's going on. I'm looking around. I'm kind of I'm identifying who's who, what's what, and I'm not doing it on a person to person basis, but what I'm doing is I'm trying to look around. I'm trying to see, out of these situations, you can see people when they have a plan to do something, they generally have some kind of look on their face. And I can't explain it to you because working in asset protection, I could tell by looking at individuals, this guy's up to no good. And it's not profiling. I know that people think it's profiling. No, there's a set factor of what you're looking for. And once you can find out what that look is, that they're walking around, they're looking at this area, and they come back around. And every time they come back around, they're looking behind them, in front of them, side to side. They're checking to see, okay, well, there's a camera there. And, they're doing it very nonchalantly, but they're doing it. They have an intention to do something, and it's not something legal. And the same thing with these situations. You see some guy carrying a big giant backpack, and this guy sets it down and then walks away. Okay, well, first of all, you have to have those bags checked. So if this guy got past the security somehow and he's got a backpack and then he sets it down, and I never saw him go through a line or whatever it may be, that's going to give me a red flag right there. And I'm not saying that I know how to do all this stuff. I'm just saying that, you have to know what's going on, especially when you got little kids. I mean, I watch constantly my kids, and I watch where we're going and what we're doing. And there's been situations where I've been very uncomfortable going to Disney and some of these places, especially after some of the attacks that have happened. Now, I have not been back to Orlando since the situation that happened at Pulse, but I will tell you right now, when I go back, I will be on alert. I will be paying attention. I pay attention in my store constantly. We had a guy that came into my store uh, 5 or 6 times in a row. This guy had walked around and was very, very bizarre. Very bizarre. The stuff that he would walk the entire store, then come back and do certain specific loops, and would look around and would look at his watch and stuff, and come by and just glance down. And finally, after about, and when I say 4 or 5 times, this is in a week. In a week, he would come in at 5 o'clock in the morning. He wouldn't leave until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We had no idea what this guy was doing there. None. We're like, he's not buying stuff. He's not interacting with individuals. He just keeps looking at his clock and he's like pacing it. And it's almost like he's like, well, I got to figure out the flow of this store and I got to figure out how things operate. And when that happened, it threw up a red flag for me. And I contacted some individuals and I was like, this guy comes in. You got to take him out. Something. This is not it. And finally, he came in one day, and I told him, I said, I laid out the time frames and when he was coming in, what days he was coming in, and we went ahead and we set up with law enforcement that day to make contact with him before he entered the store because he always walked. And once they made contact with him, he fled. He didn't even make contact with anybody. He didn't even talk to the officer. So that bizarre situation was one of those things where it freaked me out. I mean, it freaked me out because I'm like, I'm at work. I don't carry a firearm. We're not allowed to have firearms on the premises, as are most corporate facilities and corporate stores and stuff. So it feels really vulnerable. It really does. Same thing with Disney. I don't have a firearm there. I'm not allowed to possess a firearm in that facility because it's privately owned. But I know that's roundabout too. But anyway, so I just wanted to make these statements with you guys, and I really wanted to just bring up those factors and just tell everybody to be informed and do your research. And if you are not a gun person, go out with somebody who's highly trained and try to enjoy yourself. Try not to think of it so much as a self-protection thing. Just try to take a firearm out or go with somebody who has a firearm and spend some time shooting and listen to them and follow their instructions and let them take you through that process. And you'll find that the scariness of the firearm will actually subside. It won't be so bad. And I think that you'll feel more empowered. And the difference is you want to feel empowered, not powerful. If you feel powerful, that is a bad thing to feel. The bad cops, the bad apples, they feel powerful. Cops that are doing their job and are on the beat and that are helping the society and helping the community, those are empowered individuals, where if the situation arises that they need to use that firearm, they're empowered and they have the knowledge and the training to do so in a lawful matrix style fashion. When I say matrix, I'm saying they followed the use of force matrix, which is it's almost like a guideline for law enforcement officers to know when the threat of engagement threat level goes. So they know where to stay in those boundaries. So that is a difference between being empowered and powerful. I do not like law enforcement officers that feel powerful, because most of the time those are egotistical assholes. And there are a crap ton of good officers that are out there that are beating the streets and trying to do the right thing in their community. And unfortunately, they're exacerbated by situations that have nothing to do with them, have to do with other officers that are just kind of the bad apples in those situations. And I really feel sorry for those individuals that, and they get lumped in there and they're feeling like absolute dog shit because they're talked about like they're dogs. And they're just like, hey, I'm just trying to make a living for my family and do the right thing by my community. But So that's that. And then the other statement that I wanted to make very briefly is I just want to clarify with you guys. I don't want to offend anybody. And if you're not a gun person and you don't feel comfortable with being a gun person, that's perfectly fine. Second of all, I do not want anybody to ever think that I am taking the situation with the extremist Muslims and putting them into the same sector as regular Muslims. Muslims, I know a lot of them, and these are very nice people, very good people. Most of these people are here second generation, first generation. Well, most of them are second generation, if not third generation. The ones that I know, their forefathers or their descendants came here a long time ago, or they've been here for just a few years, or they've been here for maybe 10, 15, 20 years, whatever the case may be. And most of them came fleeing oppression and dictatorship and trying to live in a community in a country where they can practice their religion in their own moderation, in their own terms. And for me, I can understand that because that is, there's nothing worse than having somebody tell you what, say you're a Christian, right? And I'm a Christian. The individual who says, "Oh well, this is not correct, and you can't eat red meat, and or you can't eat swine, pig, can't eat shellfish," and they're going by the New Testament or the Old Testament, and they're enforcing that, and they're so regulated in that. And then there's some individuals that are like, I believe everything that's in the Bible, but that's not saying that I'm going to follow these guidelines of, oh, I can eat this and I can't eat that. And the New Testament says that I can ingest this stuff, and it's not a carnal sin or whatever. And I think that's probably one of the best things you can do for a religious or an individual who is practicing his religion and being part of that religion, is the fact that you don't put restraints on him and control him to the point where he feels like, well, if I go out of the bounds and I say, well, I don't want to wear a specific type of dress or garb, whatever it may be, that I'm going to be persecuted and thrown off, a bridge, or burnt to death at the stake, or whatever it may be. I feel like those people should be able to practice their religion in a country and it be completely legitimate, and nobody's going to hold their feet to the fire and be like, well, you're not practicing Sharia law or whatever it may be. So the lumping and the grouping of people together to just satisfy the media or the claim that all Muslims are bad is just absolute ignorance. I cannot stand it, and it makes me mad and feel bad for individuals that are Muslims that are like, look, dude, I go to work every day. I have a family I provide for. I am not a crazed maniac. I'm just a simple person who's trying to do the right thing by my family and by my community. And a lot of these people are doing very proactive things to try to remove their name from that tarnishing. And I feel really sorry for them. But once again, that's pretty much it, guys. I greatly appreciate you guys checking out this video. I'm sorry that it's so long-winded, but there's just a lot of topics that I wanted to cover, and I feel so much better getting this stuff off of my chest and sharing it with you guys. And I hope, if anything from this video, that you guys will take away is the fact that I'm not trying to cause problems. I'm trying to cause solutions and find solutions. And one of those solutions that I can find is doing what I'm doing right now, which is reaching out to you guys and trying to let you know about the firearm situation. And if you do have questions, please make sure you make a comment on this video. If you like it, give that thumbs up. I really don't care about all that stuff. This is not to publicize my channel. This is pretty much just to get my heart out there and, show my condolences and just show how I feel about the situation, which is actually very devastated and very saddened by the whole thing. And I wish it would just come to an end. But I don't think that this war, as I'm going to call it, is going to be solved by hugging and, singing Kumbaya. It's not going to happen that way. These people are out for blood, and they're not going to stop until they obtain it. And I think the best thing that you can do is not kid yourself and live in a fairy tale. These are real times with real people that are being affected by this stuff. So, thank you again, once again, for checking out this video and bearing with me in my ranting and raving and rambling. And you guys have a great night. And most definitely, please stay safe.